Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing both an oil change and a gear oil or transmission fluid change on the 430. If you're an owner, you should be able to easily follow along in this video. Or if you're like me and you just love to watch people work on cars and see how maintenance is done on a 430, this is going to be an awesome video for you guys. Anyway, before we get started, if you guys can do me a favor and hit that like button, I'd appreciate it because right now YouTube hates me. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started, guys. Over here, I'll kind of show you real quick the tools you need. Nothing really specially needed unless you don't have these sizes. That's a 10, 12, 14, and a 19. An oil filter, wrench or socket. And then for the oil change, you really just need the filter and the crush washers. If you're going to do the internal screen, you're going to need these two other O-rings, and I'll show you where they come from. Get 10 quarts of your favorite 5W40. And then for the transmission, after much research, I actually ended up going with the RAVENOL 7590 VSG. A lot of people said that that was the stuff that I guess is the go-to right now for the Ferrari replacement. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. Now, for the sake of the video, I've went ahead and removed the whole bottom tray. It does make it easier if you actually need to replace the screen. You can inspect it just through the hole. So for sake of the video, the whole bottom tray is off. All right, so we're going to start here at the back with a 10 millimeter on the main sump. Nice little pop should get them loose. All right, so we got the oil drain from the sump in. At the risk of getting banned from YouTube for misinformation, let me suggest an alternative to draining 220-degree oil. So the logic of draining hot oil when it's hot is so all the oil that was at the top of the motor, valve covers, etc., is all going to drain down to the sump very quickly, so you can get an oil change done in, like, you know, a 20-minute period or whatever if you're at a shop. What you don't want to do is if you were to start the car when the oil is cold and pull it into here and just for a few minutes, now you've pumped cold oil to the top of the motor, and that oil is going to take a long time for it to drain back down. So hear me out. If you were to drive the car, get the oil up to very, very hot temperature, like 250 degrees, such as the last time I drove this, and you were to shut the car off and not start it again, in theory, all the oil from the top of the motor is going to drain down to the lowest point, which is the sump. And, you know, thus, when you pop the plugs, even if the oil is not 220 degrees, it's all going to come out because it had already had its chance to drain down to the lowest point. And so take that for what it's worth. It's a free video, so whatever. All right, so now with the front sump draining, we can move on to the rear sump. This one takes that giant 19 millimeter, and I'll just pop it loose. Now, I've heard this one comes out pretty quick, so we are going to raise my drain pan as close as we can to it, and then just go for it. There we go. Very, very quick drain there. Now we can move on to over to the filter. So these should be 30 newton meters, which is just a little bit stronger than hand tight. They're a little bit hard to get off. They do make a special tool that fits into the ridges. My favorite go-to is just this Craftsman tool. I'll link it in the description, but it makes it really, really easy to get this stuff off. There it goes. All right, remove it away. So now to clean these up, you can pop them off. That makes it really easy to make sure you're getting a perfectly clean surface here. Now, even though the oil filter is horizontal, I still like to put some oil in these. Obviously, ideally, you'd like to fill it all the way up, but that's going to be impossible. So we're just going to put, I don't know, maybe 6 ounces in here. Put a nice film on the gasket and then reinstall. See, most of that oil stayed in there. Okay, so these get tightened to 30 newton meters, which again, it's just a little bit more than hand tight. Now, before we move on, so up here is the large particulate filter screen, and you're supposed to inspect this at every oil change. And if it has holes or is dirty, it's highly recommended that you replace it, like I have one here, a brand new one. All right, now that's been draining for a few hours, it's time to install some new crush washers on our plug, and then we can reinstall it right into the sump. And then simply torque to spec. Here's the part number for the rear one. I'll put it in the description. Install the new crush washer and reinstall. And again, torque to spec. So now on to the gear oil. So always take off the fill first. This one's going to be a 12 millimeter. Okay, so we got that loose. And then it is a 14 here. Well, that fluid looks brand spanking new coming out, but oh well, at least we're gonna know what's in there now. So the thing we're gonna do on this one is go ahead and change out the filter. So there's an 8mm here. Carefully without dropping it. All right, we got a plastic razor blade here. Pry this filter out. There we go. And that is why I decided to change the fluid. Even though the fluid looks new, it appears that the filter has never been addressed. So I have the gear oil filter right here. As you can see, it's kind of full of a bunch of little things. This is kind of the main reason why I wanted to change it, because if these clog, it can reduce the lubrication to your transmission and cause some damage. Every single one I've seen on the forum that people take it off, it all looks like this. So from what I can tell, these are just little pieces of RTV. Basically, when the factory sealed it, they use a white sealant, and that's what seems to be mostly on there. I have investigated to see if there's any metals, and I really have not been able to find any metals at all in that or the oil that came off. It's just this white stuff. You can clean these up. I just opted to just put a brand spanking new one on there. I think they're only like 40 or 50 bucks for a new one. And of course you need the O-ring. So let's go get this installed. Now we're going to reinstall our new filter. There it goes. Put in the 8mm. And obviously we're tightening on plastic, so just be gentle. Make sure we have a clean surface. Put on the new copper washer and reinstall the plug. Again, torque to spec. I'll put all the torque values in the description. Okay, so now we can finally remove the fill. Now we can go ahead and refill the fluid. The capacity is about 3.5 quarts. You're not going to be able to put in a full 3.5 quarts without overfilling. So we're going to start with 3 and then kind of tweak it after getting it warm. Let's go ahead and check it. So as you can see right now, we're right at the max. So my car is slightly at a tilt on the lift. So we're going to go ahead and set it on the ground and check it again after 20 minutes. And then again, of course, after maybe the first drive. All right, so with the bottom all buttoned up, we can go ahead and add in. I'm going to start off by adding 8 quarts in. The capacity's 10, but you don't know if you exactly drained out 10. So you never want to overfill these things. 8's going to be more than safe to start it with, and then we'll check the fluid once the engine is all hot and running. Now once the car is fully up to temp, go ahead and clean this off. Reinsert it, pull it back out, and check to make sure the level's in between. So I added about a quart. Alright. Okay guys, so I put 9 quarts in, I took it for a drive, came back, noticed that it was just a little bit low, so I added the full 10 quarts in there, and that got us up to about 2/3 on the stick. So I'm happy with that. Now we can put our cap back on. Let's make sure it's straight. We're all done. I've also left the rear diffuser off so we can kind of tweak our level after a short drive. Now, according to the manual, you're supposed to let it, after driving, let it set for about 2 minutes and then check it. So we can pull this out. And if you look here, 3 quarts got us just a tick below the max. So I'm very happy with the level on that. And so for my full fluid change, it looks like 3 quarts is exactly where you want to be. So now we can go and put the copper crush washer back in, tighten this up.